Ever heard of the Richard Gale Optics UK Clavius lenses? These might just be the most interesting and affordable lenses that we've come across. But how do they look? Here we go. To be honest with you guys, I had never heard of the Clavius lenses until I saw an ad. Somebody posted on the Facebook group. They were selling a full set of them and they seemed relatively affordable. So they're around 20K. And so it piqued my curiosity, to be honest. I was curious, I had not seen them. So when we started putting together this lens test, I thought it would be a good idea for us to try those lenses. Let's just see what happens, right? We have some other stuff coming in. And so let's add them to the list and see what we find. What we did find is pretty remarkable. We're pretty excited, or at least I'm very excited by it, just based on the variety of things. So before we jump into that, let's go over a brief history of the Clavius lenses from our good friends and partners over at bocarentals.com. Richard Gale Optics UK has gotten a lot of praise for its past builds, such as the Apogee, Optikov, or Trump lenses. The internationally renowned optics designer and manufacturer's newest product, the 4-lens Clavius set, is a notable upgrade from its past series, still pay homage to its fundamentally similar looks. Pulling from vintage Helios Russian lenses and rehoused into ultra-accessible modern-use stainless steel, the Clavius set prides itself on its ability to manipulate flares, even labeling itself ultra-responsive to flaring. The Clavius lenses also have interchangeable aperture discs that allow you to shape your bokeh in camera, including 1.3x, 2x, and 3x anamorphic bokeh effects. There you go. So that's from Bokeh Rentals. That's their description on the site. That certainly sparked my interest, if you will. So I was curious enough to add them, as I mentioned, into the test. So these lenses react to flaring, which is good. But what intrigued me most was this idea of being able to change and control the bokeh by just simply removing a rear element. Now, we didn't have time to test all of the rear elements. There's quite a few. It comes with, I don't even remember how many. It's a lot. But we were able to test those that we thought would be the most interesting for us to see. So we've got both the anamorphic side of things, which is the 1.5, a 2x, and a 3x. We also did some testing with some of these specialty effects or the specialty filters. We put those into the mix as well, and they're interesting to look at. So although it's a technical process to change out the inserts, it is relatively straightforward. And luckily, Bokeh Rentals included all of these variety of drop-ins for us to use. And they also gave us multiple copies. So there was at least enough way to match your sets best as possible. I would say it would be a little tricky on set to have to constantly do this, and it would make me a little nervous that you're gonna contaminate the lenses somewhere. But the fact is, if you like the look in testing, you could lock it in and go forward from there. So in order to do this, you basically just remove the rear element, drop the disc in. There's even a spot, like an alignment tool to help make sure you get it to sit where it's supposed to sit. Now, enough talk. Let's talk about some footage. So everything I'm going to show you was all shot on the 58mm. They work in 8s, by the way, 28, 38, 58, 88. This is shot on the 58 on the FX6 with an f-stop of either 4 or 2.8. I've noted it in the clips. And then we rolled them in some cases to wide open. So let's start with anamorphic, and then we'll jump into looking at the zany options that come with it. So here's the anamorphic bokeh effect that you can get from the Clavius lenses and their drop-in inserts. Now let's take a look at the zany options. And some of these are just squarely Dan, straight up and down, your dad's VHS, but other stuff is very interesting and maybe something you might consider if you're doing maybe a music video or just anyways, just it's interesting to look at these. So here are these. Now for our actual lens test, we opted not to use the inserts. The problem being is we were changing lenses so much, we wanted to make these as clean as possible, right? So when you're evaluating lenses, though this is a specialty feature that's very interesting and awesome, we also wanted to make sure that we were able to contain things in a way that allowed us to keep things fluid and matchable, most importantly. Because as you guys know, as we've mentioned, we tested 24 setups, so about 35 setups total with 2 different cameras. And so we just wanted to keep things simple, and 4 sets of lenses. So we just wanted to keep things very, very simple. So in order to do that, let's go look at some of the footage. What I'm gonna start with is the narrative stuff. So one of the tests that we wanted to do was shoot a sequence with narrative footage. So what you're gonna see is just a little narrative scene. Luckily we had 2 actors, we have a little bit of dialogue, it's there. I scored it and did some other stuff to it just to make it more interesting. But this is all shot on the Clavius lenses, and this would be a quote narrative scene if you're doing a short or some other piece like that. And we've added, I've notated rather, what lens is what in what sequence. So here's the narrative scene. It's a little short film written by A.I. Jones.
Relax, Jack. You don't need to draw any more attention.
Who are you? How did you find me?
Finding you isn't the hard part. Keeping them off your trail is.
So you've been looking for me too? What do you want?
I'm here to keep you alive for now.
I don't know who you are, but I'm done trusting strangers.
You don't have much of a choice. Like, let's just say we have common enemies. So finish your drink, and then slip out through the kitchen.
If this is a setup, I'll make sure you regret it.
I'm counting on it.
Okay, so after we've seen the narrative, now we got to consider what are other options where we would use these lenses. So another test we might want to look at would be documentary style. So for this docu-style shoot, what we have here is 2 pieces of an interview. You have one that's shot at the 58, which is of Morgan Scott, president of Craft Show, and then the second one is Nayleen Sanchez, who is in charge of the location where we were filming, and we shot that with the 88. After that, we have a little montage of one that was natural light, so we just shot with what was in the kitchen. You'll see our lights in the background there. And then we shot with 2 different versions with this new lighting setup where we kind of did high key and made it all fancy. But we did this with the 88 and the 58 again, so you could see a different color rendition and see how it vibes in lower light settings and sort of play with that more dramatic look.
I think everything's about relationships in this life. That goes from a friendship to your home life with your family and also into your work.
Our space is very different, right? We actually divide it into 3. So the bar area is called the lab. Like we talked, that's where we do the food encounters at the lab. The big area is called the Continental, and then we have a conference area that we call it the assembly, and we can kind of close it out so that there's more privacy.
Now look, I get it, not everyone can afford a $20,000 set of lenses, but don't worry, because you can always rent them from bocarentals.com. Again, they're not a sponsor of this video, but the process of renting lenses from them has been, I gotta tell you, it's up there as being one of the best. I've rented from all across the country, and frankly, I'm gonna keep going back to Boca time and time again. And what makes them more interesting to me is that they have such a great variety of glass. Everything from K35s to these Clavius to the SP3s to Summicrons. They literally have a ton of lenses, and they're very affordable and very friendly and very easy to work with, which is a key when you're looking for a lens partner. So I'm just gonna shout them out. Again, I wish they were sponsoring this video. They're not, but if you have any questions about it, head over to bocarentals.com. It's well worth it, and I think you'll enjoy the process of working with them. We'll be posting more lens results as we go. This was specific to the Clavius, and I thought it was very unique how they had this designed. As we put them together, I'll drop them and you guys will see them. So I gotta ask, what's your take in the comments? Give me some feedback. What's your take on the Clavius lenses? Do you think they're worth the hype? Are they worth 20K? Do you see anything that stands out of like, oh my God, those are great? I know you want to see a comparison. That'll happen at some point. But what's your take on it for right now? With that said, just remember, stay shooting, friends.